PR Connections Radio presents this episode of the PR Connections podcast is brought to you by Classy Communications PR and Advertising. Classy Communications provides public relations and marketing solutions for businesses, professionals, and nonprofit organizations. They can deliver the true meaning of your business with press releases, social media marketing, web development, email marketing, book publishing, and much more. Wherever your potential clients are, they can help you connect with them. Visit classycommunications.net to learn more about their suite of services that can help your business stand out from the rest. Classy Communications is your solution for business success.
Welcome to Vegas Hockey Hub here on PRConnectionsRadio.com, the voice of new media. I'm your host, Ian Kelly. And on this edition of Vegas Hockey Hub, we are going to be discussing the Vegas Golden Knights general manager, Kelly McCrimmon. And more importantly, we're going to be asking a very important question. Why is the fan base so split on Kelly McCrimmon? Depending on what social media platform you use, depending on what page you're on, what group you're on, what site you're on, Kelly McCrimmon is by far the most 50-50 guy I've ever seen when it comes to the Vegas Golden Knights. Half the fan base loves what Kelly McCrimmon has done. The other half of the fan base doesn't like what Kelly McCrimmon does. It's a very weird situation where it's not like a 60-40, it's not a 70-30. It's not one of those situations where it's, a minority is, against the GM and the majority is for the GM, or vice versa. Majority of them are against the GM and the minority is for the GM. When it comes to Kelly McCrimmon, it's a situation where your fan base, and I'm talking about you, the Vegas Golden Knights fan base, you either like him or you don't like him. You either like the fact that he is overly aggressive in free agency, he's willing to make trades, he's willing to make waiver claims, he's willing to do what needs to be done to build the best roster possible here in Vegas. Or you don't like the fact that he trades away your favorite player. You don't like the fact that he doesn't extend your favorite player. You don't like the way that he has treated certain superstars the Vegas Golden Knights have had in previous years, and we'll get to all of that in just a second. So how do you break this down? How on Vegas Hockey Hub does your host Ian Kelly find a way to break down Kelly McCrimmon in a correct way? What's the process here when it comes to Kelly McCrimmon? Well, the way that it's going to be done on tonight's episode is that it's going to be like a sandwich. I'm going to look at the positives that Kelly McCrimmon has done in Vegas. And then we're going to flip it and we'll talk about reasons why you could be looking at the negatives of what Kelly McCrimmon has done in Vegas. And then at the end, when it's all wrapped up in a nice, pretty bow, your host, Ian Kelly, is going to give his angle on what Kelly McCrimmon has actually done. What's the final verdict on what Kelly McCrimmon has accomplished here in Vegas? Now, to set all of this up correctly, we're going to give you a little bit of context here. For some people who don't know the full story about Kelly McCrimmon, this is someone who, before the Vegas Golden Knights, he was a long-time coach in the Western Hockey League. He was an owner of a Western Hockey League team in the Brandon Wheat Kings. He was part of that organization. He was part of that team. And the Brandon Wheat Kings, depending on who you are, the relationship that Kelly McCrimmon has had with the Brandon Wheat Kings and the personal relationships that he has had with certain families and with certain players who have either played or happen to be in that same vicinity of Brandon, it's something that Kelly McCrimmon has used throughout his tenure with the Vegas Golden Knights. But Kelly McCrimmon gave up and relinquished his power with the Brandon Wheat Kings in order to become the assistant GM of the Vegas Golden Knights. And he was that for the first 2 years. The first 2 seasons the Vegas Golden Knights were here, George McPhee was the main guy. That's why when you hear about who was the person who assembled that 2017 NHL expansion draft, George McPhee gets a good amount of credit. Who was the person that helped build the prospect system in 2017 and 2018, where you started getting some future Vegas Golden Knights members? George McPhee had a good part in that. But Kelly McCrimmon was still the assistant GM at that time. But after the Vegas Golden Knights, after that year 2, George McPhee would be promoted to president of hockey operations. Is why you still see George McPhee to this day, regardless if it's at City National, regardless if it's at T-Mobile, regardless of where on the Vegas Golden Knights it is, you still see George McPhee with the organization. But George McPhee would get promoted to that president role, and Kelly McCrimmon would get promoted to general manager. And over the past 6 years, Kelly McCrimmon has been in charge of the Vegas Golden Knights. He has been in that situation where he has had the ability to go out and make certain trades and make certain moves. Now, let's focus on the positive here. What is the main positive of Kelly McCrimmon being the GM of your Vegas Golden Knights? The main positive, and the thing that I will forever give Kelly McCrimmon credit for, is that he wants to win. He assembles a roster where, you know what, I'm going to call up the Buffalo Sabres, and I'm going to give up a middle 6 guy in Alex Tuck. I'm going to give up a former first-round pick in Peyton Krebs. I'm going to do whatever it needs to get done to send a trade package over to Buffalo to get a top 15 player in Jack Eichel. I also want to remind you, this is the same Kelly McCrimmon that has gone out and made trades. For example, trading Zach Dean, who was a former first-round pick, at the trade deadline to get Ivan Barbashev, which paid off massively because literally about 25 games later, you make the Stanley Cup playoffs, and Ivan Barbashev had his hand in helping your Vegas Golden Knights win a Stanley Cup that same season. There's also the same Kelly McCrimmon that you have seen the development of guys like Pavel Dorofeyev, you've seen Kaden Korczak. There are some players who are now progressing in the Golden Knights system, and they were drafted while Kelly McCrimmon was GM. I also mentioned the Brandon Wheat Kings thing because it is important. Now, from a positive point of view, Mark Stone is a former Brandon Wheat King. Ryan Reeves was a former Brandon Wheat King. You also had a situation where you had some goalies like Jari Patera. He was a former Brandon Wheat King. You also had Zach Whitecloud, who had some connections being from Brandon. That's where he's from. So it is kind of interesting how he has used those connections with the Brandon Wheat Kings, even after he's no longer in control of it, to use that and bring people over. I mean, some people mocked it at the time, and using hindsight, I know that there's potential there. But Nolan Patrick was a former Brandon Wheat King that Kelly McCrimmon brought over by trading Cody Glass. So positively, what Kelly McCrimmon has done is be aggressive, okay? What Kelly McCrimmon has done right is that this is a guy that when it comes to free agency, he doesn't just make small moves. He doesn't just do moves that are just going to make you hold water. Kelly McCrimmon will go out, and this offseason, Mitch Marner, I mean, what a move that is. I mean, when it comes to Kelly McCrimmon, the assistant general manager turned general manager, it's a situation where Kelly McCrimmon, you have to give him credit for the trades that he has made. You have to give him some credit for the free agent signings that the Vegas Golden Knights have done the past 4 or 5 years. I understand that Alex Pietrangelo, and when it comes to injuries, what happened later on, but let's make no mistake about it. When you signed Alex Pietrangelo, who was the captain of the St. Louis Blues, and you brought him over to Vegas, that was a huge deal at the time. And winning that Stanley Cup, he was a big part of it. Calling up a team that was trying to get rid of a certain player. They were trying to get rid of him. They wanted to just cast him away. The Vegas Golden Knights picked up that flyer and went and got Alec Martinez, who was still another part of that vital Stanley Cup championship roster. So for Kelly McCrimmon, the positive of him is that he's aggressive in free agency. He doesn't just stay put. He doesn't just stand still. Kelly McCrimmon has found a way to make sure that almost every free agency, almost every offseason, they're making moves. They're adding instead of, just massively subtracting. And another positive that Kelly McCrimmon has is that he is able to look into the future. It's not just being stuck in the present. It's not just being in the past and wanting to keep certain superstars around because they were good 3, 4, 5 years ago. No. Kelly McCrimmon has been able to make certain moves where you look at a player and he will bank on a defenseman that is 27, 28 years old, that they're going to get that prime out of him and then get a little bit some more afterwards when he gets into his mid-30s. That's what they've done previously with multiple players on this Golden Knights roster. It's what they're banking on right now at the Tomas Hertl situation. I mean, let's not forget, when they traded for Tomas Hertl, I mean, you gave up David Edstrom, and you also gave up a first-round pick to get Tomas Hertl. And there's also a situation where when you look at what the Vegas Golden Knights have been able to do with those players that they're banking on, Noah Hannafin was that type of move. And you also have to say, when it comes to the Vegas Golden Knights, they've been able to look at veterans like Brandon Saad, veterans like a Riley Smith, and even historically, looking back at what Phil Kessel did in his one season here in Vegas. This is a Vegas Golden Knights team that knows how to generate enough impact throughout their roster whenever it is needed. And that's what I respect about Kelly McCrimmon, that he's able to get the most out of his players in terms of signing players, in terms of trading for players. And I understand that there is going to be people who are going to look at the negatives of Kelly McCrimmon, and we'll get to that in just a minute. But positively, I don't believe that certain trades would have gone down if George McPhee was still the GM and not Kelly McCrimmon. I also believe certain free agency moves wouldn't take place if Kelly McCrimmon was not the GM. If it was anybody else that was in that seat, I don't think that certain players would have been moved and or signed if it was anybody else on that team. those are Kelly McCrimmon moves. And I've said this for the last 4 years, and I'm going to say it for the 5th year. I trust GM KM, all right? General Manager Kelly McCrimmon. I trust him. This is someone that I look at that front office, and they do everything for a reason. It's all coordinated. It is done with a purpose. So as we talked about the positives of Kelly McCrimmon and what he's done right with Vegas, now let's look at the opposite side. The people who dislike Kelly McCrimmon, the people who don't support Kelly McCrimmon, the ones on Twitter that want to, create a petition to get him fired. I'm talking about the people on Facebook that anytime he makes a trade, they pan it and say that it's an awful move. When it comes to those type of people, I'm going to sit here and say that when it comes to Kelly McCrimmon and everything that he has done the last 6 seasons, I understand the loyalty perspective. If you're someone in the fan base that values loyalty and says that Kelly McCrimmon is not loyal to our superstars, well, first off, you're mostly talking about 3 people, and I'm going to address those right now. Jonathan Marchessault, Marc-Andre Fleury, and then you're talking about Logan Thompson. But let's address those one by one, shall we? When it comes to Marc-Andre Fleury, no, I did not agree with what they did with Marc-Andre Fleury. Yes, was it heartless? Absolutely. Did it feel like it was a personal thing? Totally. But when it comes to the Marc-Andre Fleury trade, the thing that originally created the hate for Kelly McCrimmon, was he right though? Or was he wrong? Take your loyalty aside, take your family to the side, ask yourself this question. Did Kelly McCrimmon trade away Marc-Andre Fleury because he knew that his selling point and his prime was done? Did he trade away Marc-Andre Fleury because he understood that when it comes to goaltending, they were not going to win long term with Marc-Andre Fleury as a starting goaltender? Because hindsight-wise, you could play devil's advocate, and you could sit here and say that in hindsight, Marc-Andre Fleury had only, 2, maybe 3 seasons of actual production left after they traded him? I mean, people forget that when he went over to Chicago, he wasn't the Marc-Andre Fleury that won the Vezina the year prior. He wasn't the guy who won the Jennings alongside Robin Lehner. I understand from a fandom perspective, you loved Flower. All right, he's beloved here in Vegas. He always will be. I understand that he became the backup in Minnesota those final 2 years, really. Gustafsson was really the main guy. It wasn't even Fleury at that point. So if you're Vegas and you're sitting there, you understand what happens to goalies as they get older. I sit here and say, yes, it was a heartless move. It felt like it was a stab in the back. But using hindsight, was it the wrong move to get away from Marc-Andre Fleury production-wise? The Jonathan Marchessault situation, I understand that's still recent and fresh in a lot of people's minds. Only, about 10 months removed. Let me ask you this. Do you think that Kelly McCrimmon was the one going in interviews and telling everybody that he was wronged? Do you think that it was Kelly McCrimmon that went out and wanted more years, but with less money? You think that was him? When it came to Jonathan Marchessault, how is it that he goes to Nashville and his stats did not look anywhere near what he did in Vegas in his last year? Is that Kelly McCrimmon's fault? Was it Kelly McCrimmon's fault that they gave him essentially a 3-year deal that actually had more money per year, but it was less years per AAV? So when it came to Jonathan Marchessault, when you take your fandom away from it, was that Kelly McCrimmon's fault that Jonathan Marchessault left Vegas and went to go join Nashville, who, by the way, missed the playoffs? Bye-bye. I mean, Jonathan Marchessault goes to a team, they lose and not even make the playoffs the first year that he is there. And then the last person, the Logan Thompson situation, using hindsight, seeing what he did in Washington this past season, was it the wrong move? You could sit here and say, yes, it was the wrong move. But if I recall correctly, I don't think Kelly McCrimmon was the one who requested it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think Kelly McCrimmon wanted to trade Logan Thompson. I think Logan Thompson requested his way out. If I remember correctly, him getting traded during the NHL draft that was here at the Spear, was that Kelly McCrimmon's fault? Or was it a goaltender who wanted to get out? And he wanted to go live somewhere closer. So all the hate that Kelly McCrimmon gets, from a fandom perspective, you're tugging at your heart. But I want to remind you that this is professional sports. Professional sports can be cold. It can be bitter. It can be heartless. And if you look at sports as anything but a business first, you're being a fan. So from a Kelly McCrimmon situation, there's only one negative, only one, that I will sit here and say that I agree with you on. And that was the Robin Lehner situation. When Robin Lehner had his mental breakdown back in December, we covered it here on this show. All right, it was, I think, one of the games that we covered. I think it was game 28 or game 29, if you want to go back and fact check me. We did our Vegas Hockey Hub recap show where I break down all 82 games of the season for the Vegas Golden Knights. And when Robin Lehner had that mental breakdown and he went on this long rant on Twitter, Pete DeBoer and Kelly McCrimmon were the main two he attacked. Kelly McCrimmon and Pete DeBoer were the main two that you saw getting brought up again and again and again. Now, I do want to mention this. There's always two tales. There's two sides to every story. Okay? When it comes to a tale, when you're reading a book, there's side A and there's side B. Who knows if Kelly McCrimmon will ever actually discuss the whole Robin Lehner situation without being in that politically, I'm going to answer the question by not actually answering the question type of thing. But based off of Robin Lehner's account, it didn't make Kelly McCrimmon look like a good guy. From Robin Lehner's point of view and his perspective, it made Pete DeBoer look very, very cold-hearted. There's no other nice way to put it. It made him look vile. So the Robin Lehner situation, if you want to come on this show and you want to get in the comment section and say that you don't like Kelly McCrimmon because of the Robin Lehner situation and what happened to Robin Lehner, fair enough. Until we get the other side of the story and we only get Robin Lehner's version, then that's the one we have to count for. That's the one we have to base it on. And by the way, before I shift to this next point, I do want to say about the Robin Lehner situation. I said this back in December and I will say it now. I wish him well. Whatever's happening with Robin Leonard, when it comes to personal demons and everything that's going on in his life, I still wish him well. I would never wish ill on anybody, past or present, on the Vegas Golden Knights. So when it comes to Kelly McCrimmon, like I mentioned before, there is nobody in this fan base that is more divisive and more split than Kelly McCrimmon. I mean, there's people who like and dislike Mark Stone, but it's mostly a good 70-30. There's some people who don't like the fact that Ivan Barbashev's on the first line. There's some guys that don't like the fact that the Vegas Golden Knights went out and they traded all of these assets and made all of these moves the last couple of years to get rid of certain people. I even know some Golden Knights fans who don't like that they overpaid for Adin Hill. Hey, that's your perspective. It is what it is. But when it comes to Kelly McCrimmon, I put him personally at a 75% agree, 25% disagree. I believe that Kelly McCrimmon has done a real solid job with the Vegas Golden Knights. I truly believe that Kelly McCrimmon has done way more positives than he has done negatives. But if you want to look at, the glass half empty, glass half full kind of situation, Kelly McCrimmon is here. He's a top 10 GM in the NHL. All right, he's been that way for the last couple of years. Just like George McPhee is a top 10 president in the NHL. Just like, no doubt, Bill Foley's a top 5 owner in the NHL. The front office is strong here in Vegas. This offseason was able to prove it. I mean, we're seeing what the Vegas Golden Knights are doing this offseason. Personally, I love it. I love how win now mode the Vegas Golden Knights are. It's great for business. And I understand that on this show for Vegas Hockey Hub, we are in season 3 of Vegas Hockey Hub. I am also aware that when it comes to Kelly McCrimmon, I have briefly talked about him in season 1, and I did a little bit about him in season 2, but this is the official Kelly McCrimmon video on, is he doing a good job or is he doing a bad job? Well, Vegas Hockey Hub's host, Ian Rakelli, I say he's doing a fantastic job. Ian Rakelli, host of Vegas Hockey Hub, declares that Kelly McCrimmon, keep doing what you're doing. George McPhee, keep doing what you're doing. Bill Foley, you're doing an amazing job. Keep doing what you're doing. You're not going to hear many negatives when it comes to free agency signings and off-season trades from Vegas Hockey Hub because I've agreed with about 80% of it. And even the 20% that I disagreed with, I mean, Riley Smith, when they dealt him, yeah, I felt pretty bad about it. I didn't like when that happened, but I understood it. When they had last offseason, a 24-hour stretch where they lost 8 players in one day, that was a little doom and gloom at the time, but you get over it. Moving forward, we have the Mitch Marner situation. Jack Eichel, will he get extended a year before, or will he not get extended a year before? Pavel Dorofeyev, will he get extended 1 year before, or will he not get extended 1 year before? The backup goalie situation with the Vegas Golden Knights. Yes, I talked about this in the last episode. Is that going to be addressed? Maybe, maybe not. We'll find out. But when it comes to Vegas Hockey Hub, I wanted to make this video, and I wanted to say, let's talk about your GM, Kelly McCrimmon, GM KM. And I say that he has done a really solid job here in Vegas, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he continues to do moving forward. So, this is Vegas Hockey Hub here on PR Connections Radio. I'm your host, Ian Kelly. And until next time, go Knights, go.
PR Connections Radio thanks you for watching this podcast. Check out more episodes of this show and our others at prconnectionsradio.com.